And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show. DragonSpark conducts opportunistic cyber attacks in East Asia. ProxyNotShell and OWASSRF exploit chains target Microsoft Exchange servers. The IoT supply chain is threatened by exploitation of Realtek Jungle SDK vulnerabilities. CISA adds an entry to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. A Cisco study finds organizations see positive returns from investment in privacy. What's the hacktivist post-war future? Joe Carrigan tracks a romance scam targeting seniors. Our guest is Pete Lund of OPSWAT to discuss the security of removable media devices. And a retired G-man is indicted on multiple charges. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. So, are they spies or just crooks? Sometimes it's not obvious, and that's the case today with a group that's romping through East Asia with some seldom seen but not entirely novel tools. SentinelOne this morning described the activities of a threat actor they're calling DragonSpark. The researchers are fairly confident it's a Chinese group, but whether it's a criminal or an intelligence organization remains unclear. The motive behind the attacks could be either financial gain or espionage. DragonSpark is making heavy use of SparkRAT, a multi-platform and feature-rich tool that's open source but little seen, and that's also regularly updated with new features. The attacks use Golang source code interpretation, also an uncommon technique, to thwart static analysis and evade detection. Bitdefender has observed an increase in attacks using ProxyNotShell and OWASSRF exploit chains to target Microsoft Exchange servers. ProxyNotShell and OWASSRF are exploit chains that launch server-side request forgery against Exchange servers. These exploits can allow an authenticated user to escalate access and carry out remote code execution. Bleeping Computer reported earlier this month that more than 60,000 Exchange servers are still vulnerable to these attacks. Bitdefender describes several recent attacks using these exploit chains, including one by the Cuba ransomware operation. Bitdefender says that most of these attacks targeted entities in the United States, but that companies in Poland, Austria, Kuwait, and Turkey have also suffered. Look to your patches and look to your mitigations. Looking at attack records between August and October of last year, Palo Alto Network's Unit 42 researchers discovered that one vulnerability in particular, a remote code execution issue affecting the Realtek Jungle SDK, was particularly attractive to attackers. It's unusual, Unit 42 says, to see a single vulnerability account for more than 10% of the attacks detected over a period of time, but this one accounted for more than 40% of the total number of attacks over those 3 months. The researchers wrote this morning, many of the attacks we observed tried to deliver malware to infect vulnerable IoT devices. This tells us that threat groups are using this vulnerability to carry out large-scale attacks on smart devices around the world. CISA yesterday added a vulnerability to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. U.S. federal civilian executive agencies have until February 13th to apply vendor updates to address CVE 2022-47966, remote code execution vulnerabilities in multiple Zoho Manage Engine products. They contain an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability due to the usage of an outdated third-party dependency. Cisco this morning released their 2023 Data Privacy Benchmark Study, which takes a foray into privacy and its impact on organizations from the perspectives of security professionals worldwide. The study details continued strong investments in privacy despite the global economic downturn, reporting an increase from $1.2 million 3 years ago to $2.7 million today. Organizations believe these are worthwhile investments, citing the benefits of building trust with customers, reducing sales delays, or mitigating losses from data breaches as some significant or very significant benefits from these expenditures. The benefits are estimated to be valued at around 1.8 times what organizations are spending, with a whopping 94% of those surveyed indicating the value of the investments outweighing the costs overall. 79% of surveyed professionals believe that regional privacy laws have been a positive influence, with privacy legislation present in 157 countries, 12 more than last year. A majority of respondents, 88%, reported more comfort in storing their data within their own country lines. However, the reality, when factors such as costs and security are considered, drives professionals toward globalized organizations. The bulk of respondents, 90%, did report belief that a global provider operating at scale would be better suited for data protection when compared to local options. Hacktivism has been practiced by both sides during Russia's war against Ukraine, with both Moscow and Kyiv using hacktivists as an auxiliary to their security and intelligence services cyber organizations. In Russia's case, these auxiliaries have been marshaled to a significant extent from the Russian organ's long-standing relationship of tolerance and of collaboration with criminal organizations. The situation in Ukraine has been different, with more emphasis on recruiting IT sector workers, hobbyists, and script kiddies into the IT army. An essay in Wired wonders what the IT Army's hacktivists in particular can expect once the war is over. Could they, for example, be prosecuted for cybercrimes? It seems unlikely that any jurisdiction other than a Russian one would undertake to do so, but Wired considers it a serious possibility. Hacktivists who've developed their skills during the war do represent an augmentation to a cyber workforce, and governments might devote some thought on what to do with them in the post-war world. The essay concludes, in 2023, voluntary cyber organizations in support of Ukraine may therefore prove to be both an opportunity and a challenge. Governments would do well to see the IT Army of Ukraine as a recruiting ground, a pool of talent for official cyber volunteer programs. Of course, it's possible that they'll go back to their old jobs or find other hobbies to replace their wartime engagement. If the hacktivists feel, however, that they've discovered their vocation, then careers in threat research or pen testing could be good possibilities. And finally, in a black eye for the Bureau, retired FBI agent Charles F. McGonigal, formerly the special agent in charge of the New York field office, has been indicted for improper contact with foreign agents. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia yesterday said, according to the 9-count indictment unsealed today from August 2017 and continuing through and beyond his retirement from the FBI in September 2018, McGonigal concealed from the FBI the nature of his relationship with a former foreign security officer and business person who had ongoing business interests in foreign countries and before foreign governments. Specifically, McGonigal requested and received at least $225,000 in cash from the individual and traveled abroad with the individual and met with foreign nationals. The individual later served as an FBI source in a criminal investigation involving foreign political lobbying over which McGonigal had official supervisory responsibility. McGonigal is accused of engaging in other conduct in his official capacity as an FBI special agent in charge that he believed would benefit the business person financially. Some of these actions took place before Mr. McGonigal retired from the FBI in September of 2018, but he's also in trouble for activity alleged to have occurred after he completed his career at the Bureau. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in a separate announcement yesterday, said that Mr. McGonigal has also been charged with 5 counts connected with alleged violation of sanctions against Russian entities. Specifically, he's charged with violating and conspiring to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and with conspiring to commit money laundering and money laundering. The sanctioned Russian oligarch Mr. McGonigal is alleged to have been close to is Oleg Deripaska, who the FBI said in their comment on the arrest, performs global malign influence on behalf of the Kremlin and are associated with acts of bribery, extortion, and violence. Of course, those accused are rightly considered innocent until proven guilty. The story, however, can't be described as anything other than depressing. Coming up after the break, Joe Carrigan tracks a romance scam targeting seniors. Our guest is Pete Lund of OPSWAT, who discusses the security of removable media devices. Stick around. And now, a word from our sponsor, Barracuda. Right now, everyone is talking about cryptocurrency, and the cybercriminals are hiding in the conversation. Cybercriminals use social engineering loaded with urgency and fear to successfully prey on your company, your employees, and your customers. Spear phishing is just one of 13 types of email threats. Barracuda has identified these 13 types and shows you how you can protect your company, your customers, and your reputation. Find out about the 13 email threat types and Barracuda email protection. Get your free ebook at barracuda.com/cyberwire. And we thank Barracuda for sponsoring our show. This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by Strider Technologies. Strider is the first strategic intelligence tool built to help companies, government agencies, and research institutions protect their innovation and compete in a new era of global strategic competition. With trillions of open-source data points, Strider's technology and intelligence solutions enable you to proactively identify, manage, and respond to state-sponsored intellectual property theft and supply chain risks. Learn how to secure your technology talent and supply chains at striderintel.com. Every few years, we see reports of someone doing a test where they drop a bunch of USB flash drives in a parking lot to see how many people will find it, take it inside, and plug it into their work computer without giving it a second thought. Indeed, infected removable media was part of the plan recently observed from the UNC 4190 cyberespionage group targeting organizations in Southeast Asia. Pete Lund is VP of OT Security Products at OPSWAT, and I reached out to him for a reality check on securing removable media.
Although we have seen some of our customers implement technologies that actually let you transition the removable media, the data on the removable media, from removable media to something like an internal network share. So giving you the ability to kind of stop that threat while you do a bit of a check and move to a more acceptable form of media installation.
That's interesting. Kind of remotely detonate the removable media device.
Yeah. Give you the ability to check it, see what's on it. Okay, let me only take the things that are good, known good, and move them into the environment safely.
So then what are your recommendations? I mean, people have systems that they need to have air gapped, and when they need to get stuff on and off of them, what kind of options do they have?
So really, I like to start with the easiest one, which is around policy and procedure. There's lots of great recommendations, whether they come in the form of, like NERC-CIP in the US utility industry, or, the NIST cybersecurity framework, or really any good, industrial security program and policy. You can put in place, that check, that step and check to say, validate who's bringing in the media, validate, in a very basic way, what's on it. So people in process are very much at the heart of cybersecurity. And then as you mature, you can get into doing things like dedicated removable scanning stations, and even some that provide this ability, on the fly in a mobile environment, or even doing things like transitioning of that media to something that's known good. So let's say you're standardized on using a specific type of trusted removable media in your environment. You can do that transition with some great tools out there.
And what is the state of things when it comes to things like a scanning station? I mean, are those reliable? Is that the kind of thing that people can count on?
Yeah, they're highly reliable, and they do it kind of in an interesting way where, a typical computer that you and I might be using right now might have traditional, antivirus, anti-malware programs on it. What scanning stations do is they leverage multiples of those. And in OPSWAT, we use up to 30 different scanning engines to really get close to 100% effective capture of those threats, and really your earliest way to get access to stopping or discovering kind of a 0 day, because we've got lots of different engines from great vendors that you've heard of around the world, and that really helps that detection capability.
And how do you keep from injecting too much friction in the process here, slowing down people's work?
Yeah, so 2 different ways we like to tackle that. One is you can actually do this scanning in that media transition mode that I talked about. So if a contractor is looking to, introduce something in, you can have it scanned as soon as the contractor arrives while they're checking in, signing their name at the front desk. And then we take technology and go off and do all that scanning into the background. And by the time the contractor walks their way, down into the industrial environment, that media has been scanned and approved, or even transitioned to the industrial environment on their behalf. So really making it part of that early in the workflow, because we know scanning takes time, and it's all about that time and number of engines and processing. And we offer some great solutions that can be deployed and used in a very, very rapid environment. And that's great ways to mitigate the time there.
What are your recommendations for folks who are looking to get started with this, to go down this pathway? Where's a good place to begin?
Yeah, so a great pathway is to start to understand your process. So do you have contractors bringing in removable media? Is it employees from IT that need to bridge the IT-OT gap? Look at what types of media are coming in. Is it, binaries to update things like PLCs and RTUs? Is it, very large size Windows updates? Is it programmable logic data? Take a look at the data that's coming in, and then you can kind of right size your solution for not only the data, but the threats you're worried about. Our contractors bringing in things like Word documents or PDFs. All those can be part of the process and understanding and choosing what the right solution can be for you. And then ultimately, if you can take a strong stance and ban removable media, you can actually have the ability to do some of this scanning prior to someone showing up. So oftentimes we'll introduce workflows where a contractor is going to be on site, next week. Mr. Contractor, please upload all of your files to this safe and secure portal, and they'll be scanned and ready for you and on removable media when you arrive. So you can even get that kind of mature with your removable media security program.
That's Pete Lund from OPSWAT. And joining me once again is Joe Carrigan. He is from Harbor Labs and the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
Interesting story. This came by the way of the Associated Press, and it's titled Fake General, and general is in quotes,
right.
Scammed seniors in online romance scheme. This is the kind of thing we cover over on Hacking Humans quite often. What's going on here, Joe?
So this is a story. I don't know why the dateline's coming out of Providence, Rhode Island, but it's a story about a Texas man who's pled guilty in a romance scam where he scammed a total of about $1.6 million from women pretending to be a U.S. Army general.
Oh.
Now, his name is Fola Alabi.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Even though this guy's a criminal, I don't want to disrespect his family name. But he pleaded guilty in the U.S. District Court of Rhode Island. I guess that's why it's coming out of Rhode Island, because the feds have taken this guy into custody. I don't know if you're familiar about the difference between, there's a difference between federal and state prosecution. You probably are familiar with that.
Sure.
Of Ben Yellen. But the feds, when the feds prosecute you, it's a whole different ball game than when you're being prosecuted by a state or a local attorney. It is bad news because one of the things about the federal government and the lawyers is they do not like losing cases. So generally, they don't take a case unless they're pretty sure they can get a conviction.
I see. So what exactly was the scam here?
So the scam was he would be on social media sites and he would fake that he was, or tell these women that he was a general in the Army and stationed overseas. He went after women in their 70s or 80s, and they were usually widowed or divorced. And he would then persuade them to send him checks or cash. And he lived in Richmond, which is near Houston, Richmond, Texas.
Okay.
The money was then deposited into his bank accounts, which he then started moving around very quickly. So the feds have charged him with conspiracy, which is the romance scam part, and then money laundering, which is moving the money around and trying to disguise where it came from. One of the victims was a woman from Arizona who lost $334,000. The prosecutors are saying that she, quote, felt shame, embarrassment, and guilt over being scammed, and now doesn't have enough money to buy food or pay bills as a result. Wow. I'm hopeful that they can get some of the money back for this poor woman who was scammed out of $250,000 by this guy. That was probably her life savings. In fact, that was her life savings. There was a Rhode Island woman who sent a check for $60,000 and was going to send an additional $240,000, but her bank determined that she was being the victim of fraud and put a hold on her account and notified police.
Wow.
So whoever that bank is, thank you very much. Good job. I wish more banks did this.
But, that's an interesting trend, though. I think again, something we talk about over on Hacking Humans is that we're seeing more and more of this, even to the point where cashiers at drugstores, if they see you buying a bunch of gift cards, they've been trained now to ask you what's going on.
Right. I went into the Lego store. Did I tell you this already?
No.
I went into the Lego store to buy some gift cards for my nephews.
Yeah.
And I walk up to the guy and I say, I need $200 gift cards for my nephew who's in deep legal trouble. And he looks at me and I go, I'm kidding. I need him for my nephews who I promised. But he's like, that's good because I wouldn't sell them to you. So we had a conversation about it. I told him about this, about our podcast, Hacking Humans. And he said, well, I'll check it out. He probably never checked it out.
But he'd been trained. He'd been trained.
Right. He'd been trained. Exactly.
Yeah.
He knew what to look for. Here's something interesting about this. When federal agents searched Alabi's phone, they found photographs and videos of packages containing cash and checks he received from the victims. Dave?
It's always good to document your crimes.
Right,
Joe.
yeah. Dave, whenever I'm up to something that is, a little silly and my daughter pulls out the cell phone, I go, that's evidence. Put that away.
Right.
Right? And I don't understand why these criminals do this. Hey, look at all this money I just scammed this woman out of. Let me take a picture of it. I'm glad that he does it. I'm glad that he did it because that's just more evidence for the prosecutors to use to convict him. And actually, he got a plea, or he pled out. Sentencing is scheduled for April 25th. So it'd be interesting to see how much time this guy gets.
So I suspect, a lot of folks in our audience who certainly are better informed than the average person out there, they're probably, nodding their head along with this and thinking, well, I certainly would never fall for something like this. But I think, first of all, you might, But
Right.
second of all,
that's
I
a
think,
dangerous mindset to have, actually.
Yeah, I think, one of the main reasons we share this is that it's good to check in with your loved ones.
Right. That's a good point.
Let them know about this sort of thing. The older folks, the people who might be vulnerable here, this is an interesting story. It's great to have a conversation about and use that as a way to discuss some of these potential frauds. Those of us who are in the know kind of have a responsibility to look out for folks who may have a target on their backs.
Right. And anybody that is going to have a target, two things I want to say. Everybody has a target on their back. And it's just a matter of finding out what that target is, which kind of dovetails into the I would never fall for this kind of mindset. I said that's a dangerous mindset, and I mean that. You may not fall for this specific scam, but there is something that will work on you. Pretty much guaranteed there's something that will work on you. When we're talking on hacking humans, every now and then we hit something and I go, this is one that would work on me.
Yeah.
The one thing that comes to my mind every single time, the first example of that is a pickpocketing scheme where a pickpocket will take a bottle of mustard or ketchup or something and spray it on a kid. And then the kid goes up to his parent and goes, look what happened. Somebody just got mustard all over me. That would work on me pretty much every time. Right? Because I'm like, oh, look at your clothes. I can't stand the kids being messy. I would be bending down, and that's when they reach behind you and pick your pocket.
Right.
So there are things that will work on you. You have a trigger. You may not know what it is. The more I think that you listen to stories like this, the more inoculated and better off you are.
Yeah.
But that does not make you impervious.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Joe Carrigan, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
MISSY is a nonprofit organization formed exclusively to further and promote charitable, educational, and scientific purposes, including furthering innovation in cybersecurity through education, global technology partnerships, investment, and community engagement to create a collaborative network of subject matter experts and cyber professionals. Their mission accelerator facilities and programs thrive on finding fresh ideas, technologies, and the people with the passion needed to repurpose current and emerging cyber technologies into capabilities at maximum speed. For information on how you can get involved, please visit missy.tech. And we thank MISSY, the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute, for sponsoring our show. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. The CyberWire podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. This episode was produced by Liz Urban and senior producer Jennifer Iben. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. The show was written by John Petrick. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hey everybody, Rick here. If you're anything like me, you hate commercials. So subscribe to CyberWire Pro and get all of our public podcasts ad-free, as well as our exclusive CyberWire Pro podcasts, briefings, articles, events, and bonus content. Designed for the busy professional, CyberWire Pro cuts through the noise and disinformation, giving you access to actionable reporting, trends, analysis, and insight on global events occurring in the industry, all at your fingertips. Subscribe to CyberWire Pro today for only $9.99 a month, or save with an annual subscription for only $99. That is well worth it to get rid of all of those commercials. Visit thecyberwire.com/pro to subscribe today.